Today, we're diving into a mystery that honestly sounds like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. We're talking about what a lot of people consider the most daring attempted theft in Islamic history. A wild plot involving elaborate disguises, secret underground tunnels, and a high-stakes, last-minute rescue mission. But before we get into the legendary heist itself, we really need to understand the absolute fortress we're dealing with here. Think about the security around, say, the President of the United States or the President of China. It's incredibly intense, right? You've got armed guards, armored convoys, restricted airspace, Secret Service agents everywhere. But the thing is, those are temporary leaders. They're here today and they're gone tomorrow. Now imagine the kind of security required for arguably the most influential figure in human history. The tomb of the Prophet Muhammad in Medina represents an eternal, permanent security zone that honestly puts modern presidential details to shame. And today, that security is just staggering. The sky right above the tomb, it's a strict no-fly zone. Literally nothing is allowed up there except the birds. Down on the ground, everything is run from the single largest security control room in the entire Arab world. We are talking thousands of elite soldiers guarding 200 different gates 24/7. But here's the craziest part. The most extreme security measure isn't in the sky and it isn't on the ground, it's underneath it. The Saudi military actually installed this massive, hypersensitive network of underground seismic radars. If the earth beneath Medina shifts even a fraction of an inch, if anyone even tries to dig, it instantly triggers a nationwide emergency. By every modern standard, it is an impenetrable fortress. But let's hit rewind for a second, because it wasn't always like this. We need to travel back about 800 years. At this point in time, the Muslim empire, the Abbasid Caliphate, was severely fractured. It was totally broken up by bitter internal fighting. They had just lost control of Palestine. And honestly, the empire was probably at its absolute weakest point in 5 centuries. And it was exactly during this era of extreme vulnerability and chaos that a deeply sinister plot was secretly hatched far, far away from the walls of Medina. So where does this wild story come from? Well, our main source is a text written about 500 years ago by a scholar named al-Samahudi. And according to his extremely detailed account, during this period of Muslim weakness, 2 Christian men from a tiny village in Spain came up with a plan that no invading army had ever even dared to think about. Their unthinkable goal: to quietly slip into Medina, break into the Prophet's tomb, and literally steal his body right out from under the empire's nose. The way they executed this was terrifyingly meticulous. Week 1, they show up in Medina completely in disguise. They've grown these long beards, they're wearing the local clothes, and they play the part of incredibly devout Muslims perfectly. Not a single local suspected a thing. Week 2, using this fake reputation, they actually managed to rent a house that shares a wall directly with the tomb's outer perimeter. And then the real work began. By day, perfect, tearful worshippers. But by night, under total darkness, they started carving out a secret tunnel straight from their floorboards toward the tomb. To keep from getting caught, they'd pack all the loose dirt into leather bags and then discreetly dump it in a nearby graveyard during the day. Night after night, inch by agonizing inch, they were getting closer to pulling it off. Just as these guys are closing in on their target, totally confident that nothing can stop them, the story suddenly jumps thousands of miles away to Damascus. The great Sultan Nur Zangi is sound asleep when he gets jolted awake by a terrifying dream. The prophet actually appears to him, points right at these 2 disguised men, and says, "O Nurdin, save me from these 2 thugs." Nurdin wakes up sweating, totally confused, and tries to just brush it off as a bad dream. But it happens again. And then a 3rd time. 3 times in the exact same night. By that 3rd time, he knew this was no ordinary dream. Something terrible was happening in Medina right that very second. He literally drops everything. He grabs his fastest guards, and they ride at breakneck speed across the desert to Medina. But when he gets there, he hits a massive wall. How on earth do you find 2 random guys in a city of thousands? Well, Nuruddin comes up with a brilliant, sneaky trap. He throws a massive, mandatory citywide feast, practically showering the locals with gold and gifts. But his real goal? He stands right at the entrance, staring at every single face that walks through the door, looking for the guys from his dream. Hours go by. The crowd thins out. Nothing. Frustrated, he finally asks the locals, "Is that absolutely everyone?" And the locals go, "Well, yes, everyone, except these 2 incredibly pious foreign guys who just stay in their house praying day and night." Boom! Nuruddin instantly knew he found them. He storms straight over to their house. The men look exactly like the ones in his terrifying vision. He starts aggressively tearing the place apart, searching their meager belongings for any kind of clue. And then he lifts up a heavy carpet on the floor. And there it is, a deep, dark, freshly dug tunnel leading straight under the earth toward the tomb. He made it just in the absolute nick of time. He dragged the terrified thieves out to the marketplace, exposed their entire deception to the completely shocked city, and had them hanged as a permanent, brutal warning to the rest of the world. Okay, let's just pause for a second. It is a wildly entertaining, heart-pounding epic, isn't it? A story of faith, perfect timing, and divine intervention that's been told and retold for generations. But I want to stop the dramatic storytelling right here and ask you directly, looking at all these incredibly specific details, is this story actually true? Nope. It is completely 100% fake. I know, no way, right? There were no Spanish thieves, absolutely no secret underground tunnel, and Sultan Nuruddin Zangi never had that frantic 3-part dream. I know that's a massive twist, especially since we just established that this was written down very confidently in a centuries-old book. So how do we know for a fact that it's a total fabrication? Let's actually weigh the historical evidence. On one hand, we have al-Samhudi's book, The Source of Our Epic Myth. The glaring issue? Al-Samhudi wrote this book a full 300 years after Sultan Nuruddin had already died. He gives zero verifiable sources. He literally just starts the story by writing, "I heard someone say." It's just untraceable hearsay that blew up. Now, on the other hand, we have the absolute historical gold standard for this era, Imam Ibn al-Athir's massive 10-volume biography of Nuruddin. Ibn al-Athir wrote this right after the Sultan died. It is packed with meticulous eyewitness-level details about virtually everything the Sultan ever did. To give you an idea of just how insanely detailed this biography is, Ibn al-Athir recorded the exact way the Sultan stood. He wrote down the clothes he wore, his exact physical appearance, and get this, he even recorded the precise number of pigeons the Sultan owned. Yet across 10 dense volumes detailing his entire life, there's absolutely zero mention of a miraculous dream, a mad dash across the desert, or thwarting the greatest heist in history. Think about it. If something this monumental actually happened, the guy who bothered to count the Sultan's pigeons definitely wouldn't have left it out. And honestly, if you look at the theology of the faith itself, the whole premise of the story just falls apart. The Quran explicitly guarantees the divine protection of the Prophet. The stance there is unwavering. The Prophet did not require human intervention, not from a sultan and not from anyone else, in life or after passing. The very idea that he would be in desperate need of a mortal ruler to ride in on horseback and save him from 2 guys with shovels fundamentally contradicts the core belief in ultimate divine protection. So why even do a whole explainer to debunk a random 800-year-old myth? Because it perfectly and kind of terrifyingly highlights a massive flaw in how we consume information. Great scholars, trusted elders, and eventually the entire internet just blindly passed this story down. Why? Because it sounded cool, it confirmed their worldview, and it was in an old book. Today, though, the stakes are so much higher. We're living in a world of viral algorithms, incredibly realistic deepfakes, and AI-generated text that can fabricate a completely believable reality in seconds. Which brings us to a really uncomfortable realization. Verifying your sources is absolutely crucial today, more than at any other point in human history. We can't just accept a narrative because we like the way it sounds or because it perfectly aligns with our biases. So I'll leave you with this to chew on. If a single, unverified rumor in a 500-year-old book could successfully trick entire generations into believing a complete myth, what unverified internet truths are you blindly believing right now? Stay curious, stay a little skeptical, and always